It looked like the Bruins had this game well in hand. After 20 minutes, they outshot the Montreal Canadiens 17-8, and they led 2-1. A goal in the second period by Demidov evened things out. And then on a goal scored by Zach Bolduc, Marco Sturm, the head coach of the Boston Bruins, forgets that he used to be a player and doesn't know what a hockey play looks like with one of the worst coaches' challenges I have ever seen. That opened the floodgates for Montreal, leading to their 6-2 win over the Bruins at TD Garden. Merry Christmas, everybody. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Kosta here for PuckTalk Montreal on this December 23rd edition of the show. And the reason why I said in the intro, Merry Christmas, is because Marco Sturm literally gave this game to the Montreal Canadiens. You're down by a goal. Why the coach's challenge on a play that was bang, bang? Like literally. And you'll see it as I present the highlights. I could not understand what was going through his mind. I've seen worse coach's challenges than this get reversed. This one takes the cake, literally. But let's get to the highlights. Starting with Sammy Blais scoring his first goal as a Montreal Canadien, 11:08 into the first period, off of Jeremy Swayman's head. Below the goal line, he's literally got nothing to shoot at. Hudson puts the puck on net. It bounces to him below the goal line. Look, doink, off the head, into the far corner, and it's 1-0 Montreal. Here it is again. Doink. Swayman, no answer. And another reason why I hate the reverse, whatever the hell we call it, the VH, the reverse vertical horizontal positioning by a goaltender. If he's standing up there, there's no freaking way that puck's going in, but who cares? It's Boston. It's 1-0 Montreal. Then fast forward a minute and 17 seconds later, as our good friend and person we love to hate when he makes bad giveaways, Mike Matheson, does exactly that, and that leads to Murat Kunadinov scoring right from in front of the net. Here it is, boop, past Fowler, making it 1-1. An unbelievable giveaway, a bad backhand leading to this goal, and it's 1-1. Then towards the end of the period, the Canadiens are shorthanded, and Alex Steeves scores, and this goal, you can tell that Jacob Fowler wanted it back. He knew right away his positioning was off. He knew right away his glove was not positioned properly, and he flailed at the puck with his elbow. So you knew right away. You could tell just from his body language. Watch this. Steeves gets the puck on the right side, skates in. Here he is. Gets the puck. And watch this closely. As we zoom in, you could see Fowler just flails at it with his elbow. His glove is down. It's not even open. If his glove is open, he catches that puck, there's no issue. But he never raised his hand, and he knew it. And he had his head down in shame. And coming out of the first period, the Canadiens are outshot 17-8. That, not to say that Fowler played a bad period. That was just a bad goal given up by a rookie. But he looked fantastic in that first period. The only reason that game ended up being 2-1 after 20 minutes was because of Jacob Fowler. He made multiple big saves to keep the Canadiens in the hockey game. But as always, I'll point out these little mistakes that are made by the goaltenders because it's what I do. So cue up the second period where Ivan Demidov scores a minute 58 into the period on a play that's completely muffed by the Bruins at center ice. You watch as the puck squirts into the middle. Pastrnak turns the wrong way. The puck sits on the Bruins spoke, and in comes Demidov, pulls the famous Gordon Bombay triple deke to make it 2-2. Here it is again. Whoop! Jerry Swayman, no chance. I mean, Demidov's hands, we all know how quick they are. Then we'll fast forward to the third period. And this is the turning point of the hockey game. If you don't think it is, you weren't watching the right game. A pass is made to Nick Suzuki by Lane Hudson into the slot. Suzuki comes in to make a move. As he tries to get a backhand away, he tries to avoid the goaltender, makes contact with Swayman. And as he does, I mean, Zach Bolduc is right there for the rebound. It happens in no time, and the Canadiens lead 3-2. Watch this closely, and you tell me. Hudson with the puck, into the slot for Suzuki. Suzuki makes a move, and then the puck goes right to Bolduc. There is nothing Swayman can do to stop this puck, even if he doesn't get contact from Suzuki. But here's the thing. Players are allowed to contact the goaltender in two different situations. One, if the goaltender's outside the crease, and two, so long as they're trying to get out of the way while they're making a hockey play. Both those things happen there. So why Sturm decided to challenge it, we'll never know. That led to a power play. And during that power play, the Bruins took another penalty and they were down by 2 men. Cue the 5-on-3 that the Montreal Canadiens normally cannot score on for the life of them. But what was different here is that Marty St. Louis recognized this was a key point in the hockey game and decided to take his time out, something that a lot of fans criticize him for. It works out because then Cole Caufield scores, and I think Jeremy Swayman is still looking for his jockstrap as he absolutely undresses him in front and puts it 5-hole on the goaltender. I mean, he makes so many dekes here, he gets me dizzy. And so that made it 4-2 for Montreal. And again, being a former goaltender, I can say that he lost his jockstrap because if it was me, I'd have lost more than my jockstrap. I probably would have looked like Charlie Brown trying to kick a football when Lucy pulls it away. That's what I would have looked like on that goal. But holy hell, are his hands lethal. Then what happens? Well, they're still down a man, and the Bruins take a tripping penalty against Oliver Kapanen to make another 5-on-3. And lo and behold, Nick Suzuki scores at the side of the goal when he bunts a rebound in. Dobson with a shot. It pops up into the air, and he bunts it home to make it 5-2 for Montreal. And bunts it, I might say, with authority to make sure it goes in. That made it 5-2. Then, with 12:22 left in the third period, a laser beam of the pass from Lane Hudson onto the stick of Juraj Slavkovsky, who claps a one-timer by Swayman to make it 6-2, and that's all she wrote for the Bruins. Here it is again. Cross ice, boop, puck's in the net, and it's 6-2. So the Canadiens come away and go back home for Christmas with a 6-2 win in their pocket. And as we look at the standings, as they are right now, the Montreal Canadiens sit second in the Atlantic Division, 2 points ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Lightning have a game in hand, and 2 points behind Detroit. Montreal with a game in hand on Detroit. So they're sitting in good position going into the Christmas break. Not somewhere that anybody expected the Canadiens to be. Now, that being said, the Canadiens do have a couple of games coming up versus Tampa and Florida next week, starting on Sunday, the 28th. And so that game is going to be critical, especially when it comes to the standing in the Atlantic Division. It's a 4-point game. We all know that, right? But before we move forward to those games coming up after the Christmas holiday, let's take a look at what happened tonight in the hockey game and some of the good and the bad. The good, Jacob Fowler. 26 saves on 28 shots, 15 out of 17 in the first period alone, and after that, he was perfect. And there's not much you could say about the kid at this point that hasn't already been said. He's got poise. He knows when he makes his own mistakes and he corrects them himself. He moves laterally very well. He follows the play well, swallows pucks when he needs to. There's nothing that Jacob Fowler doesn't do. And the one interesting thing that I saw in this hockey game that I don't know if a lot of you noticed, but Jacob Fowler's mask no longer says Laval anymore. It now has the Montreal Canadiens logo on the front, and it says Habs on the side. Now, whether he just did that because he wasn't expecting to come to Montreal and he wanted to be decked out properly, or whether something else is going to happen remains to be seen. There's obviously a trade freeze right now. We know that Samuel Montembeault, obviously because he was with Laval, he's back in Montreal. He's going to be at home for the holidays, as is Jakub Dobeš. Something's got to give there. Because right now, between the three of them, Jacob Fowler is the best of the three options. Now, I'm not saying the Canadiens need to send down Jakub Dobeš. Far from it. You all know what I'm going to say here. And it's not because I don't like the guy. It's because he still hasn't found his game. And yes, he's been working with Marco Marciano. And yes, he's made strides to become better. But he's still not as good as the other two options that Montreal have. So an interesting dilemma for Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. Now, we've heard that, the stories about Samuel Montembeault and his upbringing and his childhood and how poor he was and how his parents poured all of their money into his hockey. But there's a lot of Canadian kids out there whose parents did the same thing. In fact, I did the same for my daughter for her dance career. Never came to fruition, obviously. She never got to be professional, but we had a lot of fun doing what she loved to do. She had a passion for it. And as parents, we were extremely proud. And that holds true for Montembeault's parents. They were good parents who gave everything they had to try to better Sam's career in hockey. But that doesn't make him any different than any other kid in Canada, for that matter. Not just Quebec. And I don't mean to sound insensitive, right? But there are a lot of kids out there whose parents cannot afford hockey, and they put all their money into their kids' dreams. Sometimes those dreams come to fruition. Sometimes they don't. Good on Monty for getting there. Playing for the Montreal Canadiens, his childhood dream. Good on you. But right now, as it is, Monty, you're number 3 on my depth chart. And whether or not the Canadiens see it the same way, I don't know. But we know one thing. Unless you get your game back, your position on this team is in deep, deep trouble. Getting past the goaltending and looking at some of the players, I've got to admit, in the last few games, Mike Matheson has gone back to his old tricks, where he's trying to do a little bit too much on the ice and he's giving up the puck. And a lot of that happens because other teams are forcing him to the backhand and he's coughing up the puck on his backhand. Everybody knows that Mike Matheson's backhand is not very strong. So when you force him to his backhand, he's more liable to give away the puck than not. So then why are the Canadiens not supporting him? Why is he making the same mistake? Why, as a veteran defenseman, do you not take the puck and turn it towards the boards or try to turn it back the other way and rim it harder around the boards? Why you make a backhand pass through the middle of the ice to the blue line is beyond me. You've got enough experience to know not to do that. Why he does it? I mean, put it in the comments if you can understand why. Okay? You can tell me that, yeah, he could have done the backhand up the boards and he would have had less of a bad result, right? But either way, making a backhand pass through the middle of the ice is absolutely asinine. I don't care who the defenseman is, whether it's a rook, whether it's a veteran, anybody. You don't make that pass. Why Matheson decided to do it? You're trying to do too much. We know the answer to the question. Because last season, if we all remember, when Matheson tried too hard to contribute on the offensive side of the puck, he got himself on the wrong side of the puck and he got himself into trouble. That's what happened tonight on the first Boston goal, and it didn't need to happen. So he's got to clean up his game. He's got the holidays. Get some time off. Enjoy Christmas with your family. But when you come back, be fresh and come out there swinging. One guy who's really going to enjoy the break right now is Nick Suzuki. A lot of the guys are. Don't get me wrong, because a lot of them are gassed. They have nothing left in the tank, especially given the compressed schedule in December. And there's even more compression coming in January and early February. But here's the thing. Nick Suzuki has had a nagging problem just above his ankle for the better part of a month. And of course, given the injuries, he's not going to come out of the lineup because he can still play, but he's been playing with discomfort. A lot of you have noticed that sometimes he just doesn't have the wheels to keep up with anybody on the ice. Tonight was not one of those nights. Tonight, he looked like he had his wheels working, other than when Charlie McAvoy took him out along the boards, which was a pretty heavy hit, and I think everybody held their breath when that happened. But overall, Nick Suzuki needs a break. I mean, he's been doing a lot of work out there. He's been leading this team, both, killing penalties, on the power play, you name it. He's been doing it all. And so there's no criticism to be had, even if he's playing with an injury. A lot of people have been critical of Nick. You can't be. How can you be critical of somebody who plays in every situation and does well in every situation? Granted, he's going to make a mistake here and there because of fatigue, because of, a bad read, whatever it is. All the players do it. But Nick Suzuki is one of those guys who's going to come back and he's going to clean up his mess. So to criticize him for making mistakes that come with the amount of ice time he has, I mean, it's a little irresponsible of us as fans to do that, right? I'm not one of these people that has criticized him at all. But, I have said he needs to be better. I haven't really criticized his game. But, oftentimes when he does look like he's skating in quicksand, even with the pain, you can move a little bit better than that. Cole Caufield, he manages to score a goal tonight. I mean, here's a guy who needs to score, right? He's got, 18 or 19 on the season? I think he's got 19, right? If memory serves. 18, sorry. So he's got 18 goals on this season right now. He's 2 behind Sidney Crosby, almost at the 20-goal mark. And I think early on in the season, a lot of people expected him to be a little bit closer or even beyond the 25-goal mark. But a lot of things changed for him. Number one, he was put below the goal line on the power play as opposed to in a shooting position. That takes away a lot of his opportunities. And second, he's been trying to feed the puck more to his line mates than he has been pulling the trigger. That's one of those things that I don't like when it comes to trying to teach a player to play a 200-foot game. You never try to take him away from his strengths. And one of the strengths Cole Caufield has is his ability to shoot the puck. I'm not saying he's not shooting it, but he's not shooting it nearly as often as he did earlier in the season. Early in the season, he was ripping it from everywhere, whether it was from the corner, below the goal line, from the hash marks, from the slot. It didn't matter. He was letting shots go, and they were going in. Why he stopped doing it? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know if it comes down to the coaches saying, listen, you need to spread the wealth a little bit more. We need to give Zach an opportunity to play better, to get scoring opportunities, whatever the case may be. And I'm speaking of Boldzirk, of course. At the end of the day, there's no reasoning behind why Cole Caufield isn't near the 25-goal mark at this point of the season. He needs to shoot more. And he proved it tonight. That stick handling in tight on Jeremy Swayman, boy, did he make him look bad. And Jeremy Swayman is a quality goaltender, but he made him look like mush. Another thing that I noticed from the Montreal Canadiens tonight was Phil Deneau. And if you didn't notice him in this hockey game, you weren't paying attention. Obviously, the first game back with the Canadiens is not going to be something to write home about as far as scoring points is concerned. But when you looked at him on the ice, every shift he was out there, he made something happen. He got a couple of scoring opportunities. He was passing the puck. He was creating havoc in front of the net, winning faceoff, which is what the Canadiens got him for. I mean, tonight, the Canadiens ended up at 47.4%. No fault of Deneau's, because he was above 50%. But at the end of the day, Phil Deneau is going to be a big part of this hockey team moving forward. Another thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you did as well, but the fights early on in the hockey game, as I mentioned, I don't like them all that much. They're entertaining, sure, but when they're staged, like this one between Janot and Anderson right off the opening faceoff, and then this one with Jacky and Zadorov skating to the middle of the ice to scrap it out when the faceoff was deep in the zone. I mean, seriously. It took the momentum away from the Canadiens and gave it to the Bruins because they were in their barn. I mentioned this before. You can't do that to a team and think you're going to come away scot-free. The Canadiens got lucky. Jacob Fowler was ready. They were outplayed in the first period. There's no two ways about that. 70-8 were the shots in the first, and then the Canadiens outshot the Bruins 21-11 in the last two periods. Why? Pretty much because after that initial blast of adrenaline in the first period, the Bruins kind of had nothing left. And the Canadiens, they were pushing. Demidov scores early in the second, and they continued to push. One of their best second periods of the season, by the way, versus the Bruins here tonight. And then in the third period, after what happened on the Suzuki goal and the Marco Sturm coach's challenge, I mean, I'm going to come back to it. That's what changed the allure of the hockey game completely. And here's the thing. Marco Sturm is no idiot. Marco Sturm played in this league a very long time. He was a very effective player and understood the game very well. And as a coach, whether it was in Europe or what he's done this season so far with the Bruins, it's nothing to scoff at. But for him to make that decision, I mean, Obviously, there was contact. But as I mentioned, one, Swayman came out of the crease. And two, Suzuki tried to avoid him as he made the play. It's not as if he pushed Swayman at all. He actually jumped in the air trying to avoid him. That's not goaltender interference. It's incidental contact. And that can happen at any time, especially when your goalie comes out beyond the top of the paint. And so for Sturm to be looking at that, and yeah, I hate it when they look down at their feet so they could see the screen, because there's this big TV screen at their feet where they look at these replays. They don't take the iPad and do it, right? Like the players do. So he's looking down at his feet and he's looking at this replay and he decides, yep, I'm going to challenge it. But here's the thing. It's a 3-2 hockey game with almost, 18 minutes left at that point? Or were we here? Sorry, no, the Bolduc goal came at 7:04. So there was over 12 minutes left in the hockey game. Number one, why give the Canadiens a power play, or why even worry about giving the Canadiens a power play? And two, where did you see goaltender interference? That's what I don't understand here. And the video coach is in Boston. I mean, you got to, when he calls you and says, what do you think? And you tell him, no. I mean, and he challenges anyway. I mean, there's a problem there. He shouldn't have done that. Spur of the moment. Don't take your time. Look, you've got 15 seconds to do it. Look at it. Take a quick look. It's obvious to me. I'm sure it was obvious to you that it was incidental contact. Why a seasoned veteran, a former NHL player, and a coach wouldn't recognize that and would cost his team the game because of it? I mean, I'm sure right now our buddy Jimmy Murphy is freaking out in Boston wondering why this happened. He shouldn't have called the coach's challenge. It was a poorly executed challenge, in my opinion. And for you guys, I want you to put in the comments as well. I'm sure you agree that the game turned on that challenge. The minute that goal was scored by Bolduc, obviously we were all cheering. But then when they called goalie interference, they challenged for goalie interference, I don't think there's a single Canadiens fan that would have sat there and said, well, yeah, there's a chance, because it didn't look like anything happened, honestly. But I digress. The Canadiens still won the hockey game 6-2. They still scored another 3 goals after that. 5 unanswered goals by the Canadiens from the second period on. The Bruins had no answer. And that answer, of course, like I said, Jacob Fowler. He was absolutely fantastic. And that's not to say that Jeremy Swayman wasn't good for the Bruins. He did make some big saves, but the Canadiens were just swarming after the first period. They smelled blood in the water, especially after the Demidov goal, and they just kept on coming. And as the game got out of hand, you saw things on the ice like Charlie McAvoy, who's wearing a full cage because he's got a broken jaw, taking liberties physically on players like Nick Suzuki. And obviously, players on the Canadiens, they're not going to hit him because of the fact that he's got a broken jaw. So he was taking liberties. Somebody's got to say something to him. Pull him aside and say, Charlie, watch those hits, because just because you have a broken jaw now doesn't mean that people aren't taking numbers and waiting till later in the season to get their reckoning. Everybody knows his number, 73. Somebody's going to go after him for the hit on Suzuki the next time they play versus Boston. I can guarantee it. Because you don't hit your captain like that without a response. And the Canadiens, full credit to them, not taking advantage of a guy who's injured and still playing through it. It shows a little bit of sportsmanship on their part, but that doesn't mean they're going to forget. I can guarantee you that. So now the Canadiens go into the Christmas break. As I mentioned, second in the division, just 2 points behind Detroit and 2 points ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're in a great spot, a spot nobody, except for me, early in the season, I said there's a possibility with the Toronto being a garbage team without Mitch Marner. I said it up front. Nobody listened. I said Montreal has a chance to win the division. They're still in the thick of things right now, almost halfway through the season. So let's see how this progresses. We're going to have to see what happens with the roster, because early in January, it's expected that Kirby Dach and Caden Gooley will be back. Somebody's got to move. Owen Bick was out of the lineup today to make room for Danault. Chances are Beck's going to end up going back to Laval, which is unfortunate because he's been playing his best hockey of late, and I've loved what he's brought to the table. But the Canadiens need a left-handed centerman. They're not going to send Joe Veleno down to the American Hockey League. If they do, it means they're just as happy with Beck as I am. Would it surprise me? A little bit. But given the fact that Joe Veleno really hasn't done much offensively, I don't see why sending him down to the American Hockey League would not benefit the Montreal Canadiens. Right? Because after all, Owen Beck is on an entry-level contract. Money-wise, it's not going to make a difference. Roster-wise, it will. From a money perspective, though, the Canadiens are going to have to move players, and players of substance. Somebody's going to have to go because you've got Kirby Dach's contract on the books, or you're going to have it on the books, and you're going to have Caden Gooley's contract on the books, which is going to bring the Canadiens somewhere around $3 million over the cap. So they've got to move some kind of a $3 million player. Will that player be Sam Montembeault? I don't know. I haven't heard anything in regards to that other than what I told you guys earlier. But given about the talks with St. Louis and Jordan Binnington. And so I don't know if there's going to be anything done. And I know they're not going to move him for Binnington. There's no way that the Canadiens are going to bring on Binnington's contract now that they're over the salary cap. They need to jettison some money, right? So we'll see what happens. Obviously, because LA was willing to take a draft pick and not retain, that is the favor that the LA Kings did for the Montreal Canadiens, not actually taking a roster player. But now the Canadiens need to clean up the mess because there's a lot of money on the table and somebody has to go. Who do you think should move? Obviously, in my mind, the $3.5 million or 3.25, that they're paying to Sam Montembeault, to me right now that's expendable. That can be moved because Monty, his game just isn't there. And maybe, just maybe, a change of scenery might be good for him because he's been taking a beating from not only fans but the media in this town for the last little while. I'm included in that. But it's never been personal as far as I'm concerned with Sam Montembeault. Others have made it personal. And that's just completely wrong. All right? These guys are just like you and me, except their jobs is playing hockey. And yes, they're playing for millions of dollars, and you expect something from them for that. But that doesn't mean they're not human beings, and that doesn't mean that they deserve to be bullied because of the fact that they're not playing well. Players lose their game all the time. Whether or not they get that back, that's up to them. But he has to put in the work. And sometimes, given the circumstances, the team you're playing for isn't exactly the place you need to be. Take a look at what happened with Jonathan Drouin and his change of scenery. Looks like a lot better player now that he's outside of Montreal, right? I mean, sometimes it just helps, especially when you're a kid that grew up in Quebec and something's expected of you. I can go all night talking about the Quebec hockey system and how it's failing players right now because the quality of the game is nowhere near where it needs to be for players to be ready to go to the National Hockey League. Just 2 years ago, there wasn't a single Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League player who was drafted in the first round. To me, that tells everything I need to know about the quality of the game in Quebec. If teams in the National Hockey League are looking towards the U.S. instead of Quebec to draft players out of college, you know something's wrong with the system. Canada used to produce some of the best players in the world, right? The OHL still does. The Western Hockey League, we know they still churn out tough, hard-nosed players and some guys with skill. But the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League hasn't produced a quality star player, I don't think, since Sidney Crosby. Do you remember anybody coming out of the queue since Crosby that was any good? I sure as hell don't. Put it in the comments if you do, but there have been players that have come through this league. I remember the discussion about Alexis Lafreniere when he was playing, he was about to go to junior. I was doing the play-by-play online for Hockey TV at the time from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League Showcase. It wasn't Maritime back then. And Lafreniere was on the ice for Team Quebec along with Sam Poulin, Patrick Poulin's son. And in that small tournament where every province was represented, I found, personally, that Sam Poulin had a better tournament than Alexis Lafreniere. Now, it could very well be that Lafreniere thought, oh, this is a cakewalk. I don't have to really do anything. I had the combine a few days ago. Now I'm playing for Team Quebec. It's going to mean nothing as far as, my draft stock is concerned. But therein lies part of the problem. Because you can never take for granted where your draft stock is, right? He goes to the New York Rangers, and I'm telling you, he doesn't turn out to be the player they expected. They expected a lot more offensively from Alexis Lafreniere. It never came to fruition. The first few years with the Rangers, he was scared of his own shadow on the ice. Took a couple of pops, changed his game a little bit, and as he grew older and he got stronger and he built that confidence, now he's starting to look a little bit more like the player they were expecting, but still nowhere near as productive as they wanted him to be, being their first-round pick. It's a lot like what we're seeing from Shane Wright in Seattle. The Canadiens stayed away from him. He fell down to 4th overall, and he's not really producing at 1st overall level. So even though the Canadiens are taking their time with Juraj Slafkovsky, I find that Juraj Slafkovsky has a lot more to bring to the table than Shane Wright does. Long term, we'll see. But Shane Wright still isn't anywhere near the player that Juraj Slafkovsky is. These are all things that happen with junior players that we really need to pay attention to, especially when they come out of Quebec, because we know that a lot of people want the Montreal Canadiens to draft players out of Quebec. But how can you do that in good conscience when you know that the quality of the player coming out of the Quebec system is not as good as it should be? The QMJHL is an offense-first league. 20 years ago, that league produced more goaltenders than any other league in the National Hockey League. Or in Canada, I should say. All right, the likes of Marty Brodeur, Roberto Luongo, Patrick Roy, to name a few. So, Marc-Andre Fleury, another one that came out of that league. There are a bunch of goalies that came out of the QMJHL. Now, when was the last time you saw a goalie come out of the Q? I don't remember. If you do, let me know. But the quality of goaltending, when you look at other leagues, especially in the United States, where I find the U.S. hockey system is starting to catch up big time, even better than the Canadian system right now. I mean, that speaks volumes towards what's happening. So, what's going to happen with Sam Montembeault being a Quebec-born player? Obviously, he's nowhere near where he should be. He wasn't a highly touted goaltender to begin with. Third stringer in Florida, comes to Montreal, ends up being the quasi number one because everybody else got moved. And now his game is just completely gone because mentally he's not there. And I don't know what he did over the summer in that neural, whatever it's called, clinic in Trois-Rivières, where he worked on trying to get his mental game in order, but they ruined him. I don't know what they did to him, but his game was completely off in the preseason, and it hasn't come back. And so maybe he has to look at what happened there to try to correct some of the things that are wrong with his game. But we'll see what happens. Who do you think is going to get moved from the Canadiens? And it has to be somebody with money. It could be Patrick Laine. I doubt anybody's going to want to take a flyer on Laine, but you never know. It could be Caden Goalie. It could be Kirby Dach. Nobody knows. Be realistic, though. Don't just throw names out there to see if they stick to a wall. Give me reasoning behind it, and we'll talk about it as we go along. Now, obviously, everybody, being that tomorrow is Christmas Eve and the day after that, Christmas Day, I'm going to take some time to spend it with my family, as you should too. Take a break from the game. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, enjoy your loved ones. Okay? I can tell you from experience, having lost both my parents, I appreciate the time I have with my family, not just my own kids and my wife, but my brothers and sisters more than I did before. So take the time to love the people that are close to you. Let them know you do and enjoy your holidays, whether it's you're celebrating Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, or Christmas. It's a special time of year. Here in Montreal, we just got a bunch of white snuff. It's a white Christmas. It's always beautiful. My daughter's driving in from Kitchener with her boyfriend. My youngest one is here with her boyfriend, and we're going to have a grand old time playing games and opening gifts. You should do the same. Step away from the mic, step away from the screen, and enjoy your family, because we don't do it often enough anymore. So, thanks for the first half here. It's been a fun time had by all. I continue to try to make the show better as I go along, but hey, it is what it is, right? Have a great holiday. We'll see you probably on the 26th. I'll try to do a show early so that I can give you my previews on the 4 teams that I mentioned. Canada, US, Finland, and Sweden. And don't forget, if there's a team that you want me to preview, put it in the comments. I'll add it to the roster. Have a great holiday, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of days.